I actually didn't think I'd have time to make this video because my daughter was sick today. However, she was so sick she was just napping on the couch with a fever. I had a mini PC nearby that has an RTX 4060 in it, and I like XCOM and I like Star Wars, so I fired up the game, and unfortunately, this is the results. This is the game at 1440p native resolution, but only at medium graphics preset, and you can see that I'm hanging out around 30-ish FPS with 1% lows in the teens. And if you look at the frame time graph, you can see constant stuttering. So this, like I said, is just medium settings at 1440p native resolution on an RTX 4060. Now, like I said, this isn't my usual performance testing setup because honestly, I really was just planning to play this game while my daughter was sick rather than actually make a review video on it. But I captured some footage of the performance because it was so egregious. And now that my wife's home to keep an eye on my daughter, I'm popping over here to quickly warn you about the health check on the game performance-wise. So the mini PC has a RTX 4060, but it is a desktop GPU, although it's a very small one. So you can see its temperatures are fairly high. So there is that, but performance-wise, even if it clocked a little higher with better temperatures, it's not going to save it from the 30 FPS average we're seeing here with these huge stutters. Also, the PC does have a 16-core, 32-thread, fairly powerful Ryzen 9 7940HX processor, which has 32 gigabytes of DDR5, although it's laptop memory, 5200, so it's not the fastest memory or anything, but we're talking a reasonably powerful PC here, at least on par with a typical Steam user. And like I said, medium settings, 1440p. Now, you could try to excuse this as a game where, like 30 FPS is fine. It's slow-paced, turn-based combat. And I do want to push it back against that a little bit. For one thing, if it was a smooth 30 FPS, that's one thing, but do you see the frame time graph as I'm playing? It's stuttering all over the place, and I don't think we're like running out of VRAM. First of all, it's native 1440p, but it's not like I'm trying 4K here. It's also only the medium graphics settings. And the per process usage for VRAM on the GPU only shows 6 gigabytes here. So I don't think these are VRAM issues. It's just performance issues on the game. And yeah, that is what it is. Now, obviously, I don't have to stick to native resolution, but also I want to mention that there are scenes in this game where you're not in this turn-based combat style screen. There's also, cutscenes and, walking around and things like that. So here, actually, you know what? Let's take a look at this one here. So there definitely are areas of the game where you kind of navigate around the map between encounters. You have third-person control of the camera. Now, in this one, I've switched to DLSS balanced. So this is 1440p medium settings, and I had to go to DLSS balanced to try to get around 60 FPS. But you can see that the 1% lows are still around 40 or so, and the frame time graph doesn't look that smooth. You can see that it also goes into these, cutscenes and things like that. And oftentimes there's little bits of stutters as it transitions in and out of that. So just overall, it's just a really kind of stuttery, janky, unsmooth experience. And again, I feel like playing at medium settings with DLSS balanced on an RTX 4060, I would hope to at least have a smooth 60-ish FPS. But even though I'm averaging near 60, it does dip below that, and the 1% lows, like I'm showing here, are in the 30s. Even just standing still, doing very little, you can see spikes on the frame time graph. When I blow up with the grenade here, you can see that the frame rate momentarily absolutely dips. And again, I get it, it's turn-based combat, but it just makes the overall feeling of even turning the camera and choosing your moves and things like that feel very stuttery and unsmooth. I'll show a little bit more gameplay here. This is still the 1440p medium settings DLSS balanced, which, like I said, I would hope that an RTX 4060 would be able to handle that smoothly, where these settings are staying within the VRAM capacity and all that. But you can see the spikes on the frame time graph. You can see the 1% lows. It just isn't a smooth experience. Now, that being said, I think like graphically the game looks fine, and even for this style of game, I think it looks particularly good. But at these graphic settings, by the way, you'll notice also when there's like scene transitions that I feel like it takes a second for some of the other textures and things to kind of load in. So I do find that a little bit distracting at these settings as well. But again, we're in this cutscene, stutter, 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 30 FPS in the 1% lows. It's just not a great experience here. Now, there was one setting that one of the negative reviews called out that I wanted to play with a little bit, which is the environmental detail. So when you look at the bottom of these settings, there is this environment geometry detail, which says enables virtualized high-fidelity geometry for environment meshes. Turning this off may improve frame rates on older graphics cards. 4060 is not that old, but can reduce the visual quality of shadows and object details. Newer graphics cards are unlikely to see a performance benefit from turning this off. Now, the reason I want to test this out is if we go over to the Steam reviews, and here's the system requirements if you're interested here. So I'm well above the minimum, although 4060 isn't as powerful as a 3080, so that is below the recommended, but their recommended is for 1440p at high settings, and I was just trying to play at medium settings and even was willing to kick on some resolution scaling. Anyway, the reviews are mostly positive, and I would also say the game itself, if you're reviewing the gameplay, etc., what I've played of it so far seems solid if you like the XCOM style stuff and all that. But if I sort for the negative reviews, you'll notice that the negative reviews are specifically almost all of them based on the performance. So like absolutely phenomenal game that are giving a thumbs down until the egregious performance issues are corrected. And you can see that a lot of these reviews calling out the performance have reasonable systems. One thing, by the way, can I just mention that I really like that Steam allows reviews to be tagged with the PC specs now, so you can actually have an idea when people are saying the performance sucks, you can actually look at what their system is. So this is a user with a Ryzen 7 9700X 8-core CPU, 31 gigabytes of RAM, that's a little odd, and then a 9060 XT 8 gigabyte version. So modern mid-range GPU with actually a pretty above average processor, 32 gigabytes of RAM. We even have performance complaints from somebody with a 9950 X3D, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and an RTX 5090. Performance concerns from somebody with a 4070 Ti Super and a 7800 X3D processor. It's reporting 63, that must be what's available or whatever, obviously probably a 64 gigabyte RAM configuration. Again, performance complaints from somebody with an RTX 5080 and a 9800 X3D, so there's a lot of performance complaints here. Now, one of these reviews did call out that this specific setting helped them quite a bit. With the environmental detail. So I did want to just test that out and see what happens. So in this scene, before clicking this button, I was getting around 60 FPS, and then I did try out turning off the environmental detail, and actually did notice that the performance spiked to around 80 FPS. So when standing still, it seemed like, holy crap, is this the solution to the performance in the game? Tried turning it back off again to see, wow, does it really drop back to around 60? Yes. However, when I actually try moving the camera around, it didn't hold to that like 80 FPS that we were seeing with it enabled. So here I go ahead and turn it back on, turn it back off, and then once again see performance jump to around 80 FPS. However, once I actually start panning the camera around, you can see that I'm still getting frame time spikes, 1% lows around 28. Momentarily, the frame rate is in the upper 70s when I'm standing still, but as soon as I move the camera, it dips to around under 60 even at times. So this is what I mean. You see how when I'm moving the camera around, we're getting all of these frame time spikes. And this is even with that environmental detail turned down. So anyway, this is just a short performance review of this game. It's not up to my usual standards where I test out tons of hardware and all that. I was taking care of my sick daughter today, so didn't want to be down in my basement with all my computers for testing and capturing my usual footage and all of that. I wanted to stay nearby here, so I was playing on this mini PC. But like I said, it's an RTX 4060 with a 16-core, 32-thread, relatively modern processor, 32 gigabytes of memory and all that. And sure, you can play the game with balanced upscaling at medium settings, targeting 1440p, and get around 60 FPS, especially if you turn down the environmental detail. But as soon as you're moving the camera around and stuff, it's just really stuttery. And I really think that 1440p at medium graphics settings, if I wanted to play at native resolution, should really be getting me better than just hanging out here below 30 FPS much of the time. Yeah, just overall really not happy with both the overall performance level, like the average frame rates, but especially upset about the stuttery nature of the game. It just really makes even a low frame rate feel worse because, like I said, in this style of gameplay, I could get used to a low frame rate if it was consistent and smooth. But with a frame time graph like this, I honestly think I'm just going to refund the game, to be honest. Anyway, but overall, like I said, reviews are overall very high critic reviews. The Steam reviews are also mostly positive. It's just the negative reviews are almost all about performance rather than the quality of the game itself. So if you don't mind a game that has low performance, then and especially inconsistent and stuttery frame rates, then go for it. But if you want smooth gameplay, I can't recommend. All right, that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope you found the video useful and or interesting, and you all have an excellent day.